What's going on, everybody? Chris Franks with TexasWest Capital, and waiting in the wings is Andrew and Tillman from Arch Public. As always, guys, on Wednesdays here, Beards and Bitcoin. So great to have you all checking in with us. Before we get going here, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up, hit the like, follow, subscribe, leave some really cool comment. If we want to answer it, we will. If not, we'll just pretend it never happened. By the way, just so you know, that's Tillman's idea, and he can't say it's not because he's not up on screen right now. So, yeah, you guys can blame him for that. But anyway, so today, guys, we're going to talk about, as always, looking at Bitcoin and what's going on. And I think some of the really big stuff coming out lately is you've got MicroStrategy, Sailor's MicroStrategy 4-year plan. I think it's about complete in like 4 months here. So we've got that going on with the buying of the Bitcoin. We've got Mara jumping up and doing it. We've got Asia. MetaPlanet was just overtaken by another company in Asia to be the largest, company holding Bitcoin in their treasury. And importantly, something I kind of want to look at today, there was an article where we're looking at Bitcoin potentially as the new oil. So we'll kind of look at that article. I'll pop the link on there and you guys can look at it yourself. Of course, we'll have Andrew and Tillman's thoughts on that. Let me, as a matter of fact, since I'm talking about it, I guess I might as well go ahead and bring them up, right? There, all right, guys, look at this. We got this. As Tillman mentioned right before the show here, we've got the Oreo cookie going on. We got black on either side and the white in the middle there. Again, that was a Tillman thing. Please send your upset, responses and whatnot to Tillman@Tillman.com.
We're live on stage now. Oh, your monologues have gotten progressively longer every single week. So I didn't even know we were on stage now.
It's all about me. It's all about me.
That control is intoxicating, isn't it? It's like he's over there like Schmeagol. He won't let us on stage until he's like ripped us apart and thrown us under all the buses in the parking lot. So,
hey, the only complaints I ever get are about the things you say, Tillman. So I mean, I'm just trying to help you out here. But seriously, I know you guys probably missed us last week. Admit it, you did. I know we missed being here. Again, we do have a lot of fun with this show, and I hope you guys catch on with that. And along the way, maybe, you don't have to agree with what we say. We've got some different thoughts sometimes, but, at the end of the day, the idea is just kind of keeping an open mind here, right, guys? Kind of just giving them some thoughts because, we do have a very diverse and a very large background in finance, whether it's TradFi, Bitcoin mining, all this kind of stuff, finance, a lot of things in which a lot of our viewers may not have a lot of experience with that. And so we can kind of extrapolate from that and go, okay, well, if we're here, then this is likely the thing that's going to happen.
Well, arguing is a productive endeavor, right? At all levels. And that's essentially what good shows should be about, which is like, let's talk about the hard stuff that nobody wants to talk about, and let's see what comes out the other end. And I think we tackle the things that are hard. I would love to see more participation from the audience in terms of pointing us towards subject matters and things that they want to discuss. But there's never a shortage of stuff in the space to talk about. It's always something's always going on, and there's always somebody making comments that one of us at least disagrees with. So
yeah. So really, guys, take it seriously. I always tell you every week, leave comments under the video, whether you're watching on on X or YouTube or wherever you're catching us here, or anything that maybe you have questions about or things you'd like to see us talk about when it comes to Bitcoin and the industry and miners and TradFi and all this stuff and the ETFs. And we'd be glad to discuss it because at the end of the day, the show here is about you. We know what we know and we know what we think, and we can talk about that, which is great. But if you're coming here, we'd love to give you information that you're looking for as well in case we're not covering it. Real quick here before we jump in, guys, ICG has a question here. It says for Tillman or Andrew, doesn't say for both of y'all. Is there a max amount you can fund the gateway product with? This has to do with their Arch Public offerings that they have here, guys.
Oh yeah, the future side, it's 10,000, and the Bitcoin side, it allows you to purchase up to 50,000 of Bitcoin in a given year.
So both of those are in a given year, 10,000 in futures and 50,000 in Bitcoin?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, our gateway program on the future side is really an entry level product that kind of get your feet wet and proof of concept. And at that point, once you see turns, the performance, liquidity, all of that stuff, and you want to be able to trade more than 10K, then you get into our concierge program, and you're at 50K, 500, all the way up to $10 million. So the ability to trade significant capital inside of our ecosystem exists, and we have a lot of folks that do that.
So there you go, guys. Remember that's God, the website. What is the website? I'm always going to screw it up.
Archpublic.com.
Okay, I always want to do the try Arch Public, but that's the @ on Twitter, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Intelligence is a sign of improvement.
Here we go.
And we have beat this horse to death multiple times, Chris.
I'm scared at this point to say the wrong thing and send them to the wrong place.
I'm gonna have to start wearing gear, so that you can read it instead of having to remember it.
Real quick here, we've got Junie, what's going on? Says check out what the New York City mayor just said about Bitcoin. Yeah, I think we all kind of saw that. He's the guy that took part of his paycheck in Bitcoin, right? And he got a lot of hell about it. And he comes out there, he's like, "What's up now, mother?" He's like, hey, who's laughing now, right?
The I told you so crowd, it loves these moments. I mean, this is the moment where people come out of the woodwork and say, "How do you like me now?" And good for him. I'll say, when you do it as a statement in the face of great opposition, kudos, you kind of deserve the moment is the way I look at it. And that politically speaking, that probably was a hard thing for him to do in a hard state to do it, with a lot of criticism, a lot of scrutiny, and it paid off. And that it harkens, it makes me excited about America, because America is about risk. It's about who thinks who's right and who can build the bridge to make it so. And that's an exciting time. And we're living in, I think, the next 4 years where innovation is going to be rewarded handsomely. I think.
It's like Russell Okung, the NFL player that took his entire contract.
Yeah.
and he did it, what Bitcoin was, about 2/3 of the way to the top, and then rode it all the way back down, and he rode it all the way back up. And so his contract effectively tripled the capital that he took it in. And that's serious. He was the first one to do it. And others have done it. Like Odell Beckham did the same thing.
Yep.
And again, wrote it down, but wrote it back up. And he had a tweet, maybe a week and a half ago that said the same. Like, hey, anybody remember this? What do you guys have to say now? So, pretty cool stuff. It's we've predicted on this show that there would be an explosion of Bitcoin as a quote unquote ecosystem over time, and it's happening faster than even we predicted. You get the price of Bitcoin moving from 52 weeks ago at 25 to 27, and now it's at 95 to 97 on any given day. And then you have Bitcoin options that have become a thing. By the way, futures options have also become a thing. So there's now 2 different types of options that you can trade associated and connected to Bitcoin. I put out a tweet earlier this week associated with, the Bank of New York Mellon and BlackRock and Morgan Stanley talking about building products that are going to be lending/yield products in the space that should come online in Q2 of next year. All that stuff is happening because market participants, meaning the financial institutions that move this stuff around, they react to what customers end up doing and wanting. Meaning, where are the flows, right? So if the flows are at a spot where we're at over 100 billion, in AUM in the Bitcoin ETFs. That's so far beyond what anybody predicted in the first year. We're not even done with the first year, by the way. that they're forced to then create product to meet demand, because they're getting demand that says, no, I don't want spot, and I'm not sure if I actually want to just hit press buy on your Bitcoin ETF, but what else do you got? What else can I be involved with? And by the way, Michael Saylor's quote unquote infinite money creation is born out of all of that.
Yeah.
They're literally just doing exactly what Hollywood does. They find a recipe that works, like thesis, antithesis, hero, villain. Yeah, like there's a formula that gets humans to do stuff. And when you find that formula, you exploit it to the maximum degree. And when you have a huge mass of people that have spoken through action, difficult action, setting up an exchange account, putting money in it, going through KYC, AML, and then buying an ETF that's associated with Bitcoin in the waves that they have, then, you understand, as a salesperson at the top of the heap, that you need products to sell. And they just follow the same formula that they follow through with all of the things that they do. It's no different. They could do this in their sleep. They're not wondering, I wonder what we should do next with Bitcoin. They're going, oh, another commodity driven market. Oh, what did we do with the housing market? Oh, we did security backed lending against it. We did bundling with it. We did backstop with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac with it. We did all sorts of derivative products all over every market on the earth, including the physical, which is, to my point, become kind of the tick on the elephant, not the elephant, because you can say that a piece of property is worth a lot, but the system by which the property is lent against is worth more. That would be my premise.
Yeah, and so when we look at this, we go, okay, well, speaking of MicroStrategy, again, they came out not too long ago with their 4-year plan, which appears to be damn near done, in 4 months now, with this just ridiculous amount of money they keep pulling in, by issuing convertible debt, issuing some stocks of shares of stock, and they're getting money in to buy more Bitcoin. And, it's just rinse and repeat. They hold around 500,000. And I think he's talked about 460, 500,000 Bitcoin now. I believe he's talked about trying to get around 1 million. And I think that is also what Trump was saying he wants to do with the, Bitcoin strategic reserve. And then you've got Mara, and Mara really kind of buying into the whole MicroStrategy idea. Recently, 10 days ago, completed $1 billion offering, and bought more Bitcoin with that. And here they are again saying, here's another 700 million with the option to extend another 150 million to do that again here. I mean, it's crazy.
Why has Taylor been able to move so quickly through that 42 billion? Not all the way through it, but making significant progress. It's demand. It's pure demand. So the banks want to lend him that money. The banks want to set up those convertible notes because they then get to sell them to people. That raises that capital. And then the amount of money that the banks are making helping him do this is significant.
People are playing 8x leverage MicroStrategy plays. Like it's nuts what people want exposure to, and they want exposure to the rocket ship that crypto is, and that's why altcoin season may look a little different this year, this time around, because there's not a need for that to be the new rocket ship that everybody kind of pushes gains into. There's there's circles of wealth now that you can stay in Bitcoin and you never have to leave, and you still get the same exposure and the same risk tolerance, risk reward ratio and all the good stuff that goes along with that. So, there's with every day that passes, there's more and more products that allow you more and more diversified tools to keep.
And we like this.
To stay in Bitcoin. Exactly. We love it. Yeah. It's what we've been waiting for, quite frankly. For
what we've been talking about, right? Well, so we talk about them, but this isn't just U.S. centric. Again, as I mentioned, so anybody that's been following along with this kind of stuff, MetaPlanet over in Japan has been the largest, holder of Bitcoin, and they're also employing the MicroStrategy, strategy. as far as Bitcoin accumulation. But now we've got, who is it here? Hong Kong-based Boya Interactive. It's an online gaming firm. They overtook Japan's MetaPlanet, become Asia's largest corporate Bitcoin holder on November 29th. They disclosed a treasury reallocation comprising the sale of 14,200 Ethereum for $49 million to acquire 515 Bitcoin. So that was executed between November 19th and 28th, brings their total Bitcoin holdings to 3,183 Bitcoin, just a smidge under $300 million. So, kind of pales in comparison to 3 billion, Mara, 30 billion, in total holding there for MicroStrategy, but nonetheless, still significant in that these companies are really starting to pick on and do this.
I would argue you don't. So you look at just traffic count on the road, right? Michael Saylor paved a new road through a jungle that didn't exist before. No one had ever traveled this road before. No one even knew this road could be cut into the existence. And now that he is way deep into the road, I don't know how many miles the analogy will lend me to give, but he's blazing a trail and he's got a hell of a head start. Let's say that.
Yeah.
There's going to be natural followers, and they're going to lend themselves at the beginning to traditionally be the smaller amongst the corporations, governments. Why? Because they have the most to gain and less to lose.
Yeah.
That's always the equation. It's like, how much do I have to lose and how much can I gain from this equation? And if you're the US, up until this point, you had a lot to lose and very little to gain by adopting a Bitcoin strategic reserve or any of those things. But there's something that Trump said, and opinions aside, he's going to be the next president. He said something that was very interesting, which let me know that he understands what's going on right now. And what he said was this: yeah, we'll write a little Bitcoin check to pay off the national debt. We'll write a little Bitcoin check. So what is he saying when he says that? He's saying that he's going to take a position in Bitcoin, or the country would, and the appreciation after that position is taken would be so great that it would allow us to pay off our national debt. Now, whether that's real or false or anything in between, think about what he's saying, okay? And I want you to then think about what the example you led in with. A rising tide floats all ships. If you get 100, 500, 1,000 corporations, whether they're big, small, or medium, all buying Bitcoin to put on their balance sheet, and then you have a handful of sovereign nations, big, small, or indifferent, buying Bitcoin to put on their strategic reserve fund, that is something that we've never had before, and they're the biggest buyers we've ever talked about, and it's at a price level that's at an all-time high. So I mean, it's like, let's get a perspective here as to, maybe we don't hit the moon, but it looks like if we miss, we're going to hit a star, and that sounds pretty good to me. You know what I mean? Like, and Michael Saylor, and if you think what I'm saying is, between Michael Saylor, if we truly buy 1 million coins nationally, and then you talk about all the other heavyweights that are US based corporate run entities or part of that system, the banking system, BlackRock being an example of one of those, collectively, they can control the price. Collectively, they have so much of the supply that, between all of them, let's say they have 5 million Bitcoin. That's the market maker, man. That they determine where the price goes. I can assure you, because whoever has the gold makes the rules. That's the whole point.
That's how it goes, right?
That's how it goes. So
whoever wins the war gets to write history. Yeah, same thing.
Well, if you're the bank in Monopoly, you don't run out of money. That's the point. Yeah. So if you see what's happening, it's not a far-fetched concept or an idea to think that a nation, forget America for a second, but any nation, just call a nation out, that a nation could pay off their national debt with the appreciation that they get in Bitcoin. Because on a small level, you see that taking place right now with massive corporations that are doing it, like MicroStrategy. They're able to raise as much debt money as they want, and they are able to cycle it through in an arbitrage opportunity that's an infinite money hack. I mean, what else could you want in a leader and a road that you're looking at following on? And even if you're saying, hey, I'm not going to drive 100 miles an hour down the road like Michael Saylor is, so what? Get on the road at 10 miles an hour, see what he's done, look it around, take the scenery and see what all the hubbub is about. And I think, if you just see that and you get a taste of the water, you're going to be a drinker. You're going to stay there and you're going to, be at the fountain of Bitcoin for the rest of your life. So it's going to
Your
happen.
analogies, man. I love them. I love them. But Andrew, man, so we're talking about all this money kind of coming in with MicroStrategy and Mara and all these things, and price doing its thing. And then we look at the ETFs, right? And I see some rumblings that maybe there was almost a $700 million day for BlackRock, but I haven't been able to see any confirmation. Have you seen any confirmation on that?
I've looked for confirmation of it too. BlackRock's flows usually they lag by about a day and a half. So we'll get confirmation one way or another. Wouldn't surprise me at all. BlackRock has rarely had a negative day, and oftentimes when there are larger negative days across the asset class, they have a zero inflow day. So they never go negative, hardly at all. Somebody could do the research on it, but it's in single digit days that they've actually had negative days. So all of their quote unquote big days are to the upside. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, the bottom line with the product itself is you're now north of 30 million in total net flows. Just 3 months ago, that number was at 16 million. So it's actually accelerating.
Billion, right?
16 billion. Yeah. So 30 billion and 16 billion. So, the number keeps accelerating. Again, we'll talk about demand associated with products that surround, something that's growing that fast. And that's what they're doing. I come back to, and I've mentioned this a couple times on this show, Larry Fink on their quarterly earnings call, talking about the growth of Bitcoin and where it's at and where it's headed, and that it reminds him of the home loan and mortgage market when it started to grow. That's really something, because the ecosystem that grew up around home loans and mortgages, all three of us on this call know what that turned into. It turned into trillions and trillions of dollars and bets on top of bets on top of bets on top of bets. And then movies were made about the collapse, yada, yada, yada. So we're nowhere near, the velocity that we're end up going to get to. And we're nowhere near even the middle of the quote unquote mountain or the top. So it's just a stay in the game type of deal, man. I come back to, conversations that have been had that talked about the type of strategies that will be built, that will be straddle type strategies that will take both long and short positions while betting on a slightly longer position, being the winning position. But then you have downside protection, blah, blah, blah. And the yield that will be, thrown off from those positions. Also, by the way, traditional markets will create those positions, but the yield that you'll be getting is USD yield. So they're not going to be giving you yield in actual Bitcoin. So they can create, quite literally, an infinite amount of those products while not eating into, in any way, shape, or form, their Bitcoin position. So imagine the panacea that looks like and sounds like to the people that create product in TradFi. It looks like an absolute, glistening gold mine to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it absolutely looks fantastic if you're coming in that way, for sure. Now, so we've talked on and off throughout the year here about the 13F filings, seeing who owns what and coming in. Now, I'm of this opinion that the ones that we see coming out next that are telling us what's going on right now are going to be like a real, I think they've got the potential to be a huge catalyst coming into Q1 and Q2 of next year, because we had the doldrums of the summer there. Now we have the big spike and the move up here. We have, the previous filings showing already that people were getting in there. They were the first movers. They're in there. I think we're going to see a lot, like a big influx of different people now. And those who are in, they put their toes in the water just to kind of begin with. I think we're going to probably see them really kind of yanking that up a bit as we move forward here, especially starting with this next filing. What do you think?
Well, they're forced to chase performance. That, if your peers have been involved and they're a net plus against your performance, you've got to play catch up. You can't not hold this if you manage money for people and you've got a mandate to outperform the markets, and Bitcoin has done that in spades. So yeah, I think the thesis there that 13Fs are going to see a significant uptick in holding Bitcoin ETFs is absolutely correct, because the nature of that business, if you're managing money on behalf of folks at a hedge fund, at a family office, whatever it happens to be, you can't go to that meeting in Q1 or at the end of Q4 and say, we're still really not believers, because those customers are a little sharper than your average, high net worth individual. They're pretty sharp, and oftentimes it's not the actual holder of the account that's even showing up at those meetings. It's a fiduciary or somebody on their behalf, and those people are paid to be sharp. So you can't, there's going to be chasing performance, no questions asked.
Well, and I would argue even on the equity side of things, if you're sitting on a board of directors and you're a publicly traded company, your fiduciary job is to protect shareholder value. And if I'm Microsoft and I'm sitting on how many billions, I don't want to exaggerate, $70 billion in cash, and you're getting eaten up at 18% a year in terms of the true inflationary rate, is that a responsible? Is that fiduciarily responsible? I think that we are going to see a Bitcoin standard set that you need exposure, you need risk on asset exposure on your balance sheet, and this product line that they're coming out with is going to allow everyone to check that box and to actually accomplish that, because there's going to be a flavor of ice cream for everybody. If you're looking for one, you're going to be able to get it. And so to Andrew's point, I do think that you're looking at kind of a market being forced to adapt in the fact that they are chasing the performance, but you're also going to see a market being forced to defend, and the defense is against inflation, and Bitcoin does an excellent job of that. And until proven otherwise, it's the best asset to own to do that job. So why wouldn't that be a prudent thing from a insurance perspective to back your assets with, or to have some portion of your assets backed with?
Yeah. And, this is a great point, because one of the key concepts that I really focus on at our Trading Academy is how and why markets move the way they do. And part of that has to do with the fact that there is a herd mentality. Now, most retail traders, when they hear that, they think we're just referring to retail traders, which they do tend to herd, right? But the reality of it is your big money managers herd as well. And this, I think, is a concept that is lost on many people. But again, as you guys are speaking about it here, you're showing us exactly that is what happens, right? Because when you're a money manager, when you're up there, and you've got to, again, you've got the fiduciary duty, you've got this, you have to keep up with the Joneses, right? Even if the Joneses turn out to be wrong, it's a lot safer for you, employment-wise, I guess you could say, fund-wise, all these things, if you're doing what everybody else is doing. And so we tend to see this hurting not only with retail, but we tend to see money managers and large corporations, whatever, also tend to hurt as well. And, I've gone back to this a few times over the last few shows we've done, but it really does. When I stop here, I've been doing this for 30 years and really seen just how quickly, Bitcoin has become like up there in everybody's talk from earlier this year when we were first talking about it, going, well, yeah, Trump said it and it'll be great if we hear it a time or two, but I don't know if we really becomes a main point. To now it's become a main point, and it's become such a main point that everybody's talking about it as a main point, and whether he ends up going through and doing it or not, the fact is this has become mainstream talk now.
Here's what's crazy about it.
You're missing out, right?
Well, here's what's crazy about it, Chris. It's become mainstream talk, but from two sides of the polar ends of the spectrum. You have one side of the spectrum talking about runes and how that's the new game changing, that the tech is it. Somebody posted something online, and it was a really great question. And it said, "What is Bitcoin backed by?" And here's the answer. And it's liquidity. And anything backed by liquidity is something you should have exposure to, because liquidity, the market, if you believe the market is equally distributed in terms of the volume, you are sorely mistaken.
Yeah.
10% of the volume is driven into 90% of the stocks, and 90% of the volume is driven into 10% of the stocks. And so you are just chasing the crowd all the time if you want to get the big returns. The question becomes, how close are you to any given head wall? And when can you hear that information? Because if you were a big believer in electric cars and you got in Tesla at the beginning of time, you wouldn't care about Bitcoin. You know what I'm saying? And I can point to a lot of instances. NVIDIA. There's a lot of NVIDIA billionaires out there that still don't give a rip about Bitcoin. I can assure you, because that was their ride to the end of the rainbow. There's been a lot of people that have ridden Bitcoin to the end of the rainbow. Unfortunately, those people don't have the same motives that a lot of the big boys that we're talking about do. They have the motives of the runes. They have the motives of the sovereignty of the U.S. citizen and his ability to cold storage. That's not the future that everyone else is grasping to, and the liquidity is being driven towards. The liquidity is being driven towards synthetic products, paper that represents Bitcoin. And that's the game. And you know what? If we want to play at the highest level and we want the benefit of Bitcoin going to the highest price, that system appeals to the most people. So here's an interesting thing that you can measure. There's a huge group of people out there, huge, and they're measuring Bitcoin's price against the power law curve. And a power law curve is two factors, right? Price being one, and you can throw any factor in the other category. Well, they've chosen a factor called the number of wallets over $1,000 in equivalent Bitcoin value. That's their second variable that they've all said, this points to where Bitcoin's going better than anything else. Okay. Well, what would be very interesting for somebody out there that loves to do sidebar stats would be to measure the new wallet growth as proportionate to ETF growth, because I would venture to guess, call it a hunch, that ETF growth is eating into new wallet growth. And I would venture to guess that trend is going to continue. And I would venture to guess the more paper products that are put out there, the stronger that trend will be. And more yield products that are created for Bitcoin depositors, it's almost an inevitable. The vacuum cleaner effect is in full force, my friends. They want all the cold storage Bitcoin, and they want it in one of the appropriate hands, let's call it.
Yeah. And so, when we're looking at this, then comes this article that I kind of came across. I'm going to post it here at the bottom. There it is, if anybody would like to look at that. And so this is Luke Groban, and he's talking about the idea that maybe, he doesn't say it's definitely going to happen. He admits it's maybe a kind of a far-fetched kind of idea, but he says, listen, he's looking at what's going on with Trump saying, okay, we've got this strategic reserve that we want to do with Bitcoin. And so he draws this parallel between Bitcoin and oil. And he looks back to 1973, where we had a revaluation of oil. And in doing so, it strengthened the U.S. dollar system because it attracted all that global capital because oil was then traded in dollars, right? It was that petrodollar system. And so he goes to this article and he suggests that maybe Bitcoin could play a similar role today by being inflated in value, which would then indirectly benefit the U.S. economy through stablecoins. And so the way he says this is that if Bitcoin's value increases significantly, I mean, we all know stablecoins are the big thing, right? So if Bitcoin's value increases significantly, it then has the potential to enhance the backing or the use of stablecoins. And then higher demand for stablecoins is likely to lead to higher demand for U.S. Treasury bills, because many of the stablecoins, as we know, use those T-bills as part of their reserve assets. And so you've got a lot of people here talking about how the U.S. is on this, they can't continue spending as much as they've been spending and how much is going on. We have this debt issue, unsustainable fiscal position. And so the idea would be that, he looks at a Treasury Borrowing Advisory Committee report, a TBAC report, and he interprets it, a recent one, to mean that the biggest banks are signaling to the U.S. Treasury that digital asset markets, like stable coins that are backed by Bitcoin or T-bills, could help manage that debt issue then. And so the idea is basically win, 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 right? Bitcoin goes up in value. It's a feedback loop into the stable coins, which then buy more Treasury bills, which then the U.S. doesn't have to buy. And so, you're able to start, even if we don't look at paying off the debt with a little Bitcoin, we kind of do that. What do you guys think on that?
I think there's some huge fallacies to the equation. Number one, oil is used at a retail level. It's in everything we buy.
Yeah.
So we're like there's a diminished supply of oil at a rate that allows us to depend on it both in the retail and in the financial system as financial products and the markets.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist in Bitcoin. You're not going to be able to ever create that. Why? Well, because the value of Bitcoin is best realized hoarding it.
Yeah.
Not using it, not burning it in your car, not spending it on coffee. And so the smartest minds, the people who want power, it disrupts the power structure too much. The world governments want to control the fiat attached to land assets. Oil is one of them. Why? Well, they can defend it with an army, and you can't do that with a cold storage wallet. And so there's these natural prohibitors in my mind that would keep Bitcoin from being that. That doesn't mean it can't be real estate. That doesn't mean it can't be a huge asset class that aids and assists as a backstop to the value of one, of a sovereign nation's fiat currency. But to think that that's gonna be the one is like oil was is nuts to me. It's absolutely insane, and I'm going to tell you why. Because tell me how easy it is for a government to take eminent domain nationally over their oil reserves.
Yeah.
Tell me how easy it would be to take eminent domain of all the cold storage Bitcoin reserves.
Yeah.
You ain't doing it. And for that reason alone, I think it's a bug.
Yeah, I agree with Tillman here. And here's the problem that I have, over the past 6 months to 18 months about, as Bitcoin has risen, to the levels that it has and become such a meaningful part of the traditional finance conversation. Everybody wants to compare it to a current or previous asset, whether it's gold, whether it's oil, whether it's something else. It's going to be something different than all of those things. And the reason why is because how hard did society try and quantify the internet? There were a million different ways that they tried to quantify the size and scale and value of the internet. Everyone was wrong. Everyone was wrong. Yeah, everyone was wrong. And so I think that we're going to find out the same thing with Bitcoin. We're in the first or second inning as it relates to people being aware of the value of Bitcoin. Tillman said it a million times. You know, Bitcoin and its growth in the first 13 to 15 years has been subterranean. Most people have either ignored it or not even been aware of it at all. Yeah. Now we're at a part where we're seeing sprouts, and what do we do with those sprouts? We have no idea the scale that those sprouts are going to grow into, what it will be, can be, or will be used for. Even the three of us, which are true believers, probably haven't gotten it right as to what Bitcoin may be in 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
So trying to compare it to oil, trying to compare it to gold, I think is it's interesting for an article. It's interesting for a tweet, but I think it's probably going to be wrong in the long term. You know, there were people that were anti-internet that look absolutely ridiculous today. There are people like Mark Anderson who were wildly positive about the internet and said that software was going to eat everything. Well, even that's wrong. It's not even software anymore, right? Software is the Microsofts of the world. Well, again, progress has moved beyond even the traditional idea of software. We're now on to artificial intelligence, and where does that go? So, I don't think.
Well, and can I just interrupt? Right, I think there's a couple things I want to say. Number one, there's bigger elephants in the room than Bitcoin. AI is one of those elephants, and AI absolutely impacts Bitcoin. And so there is some existential, catastrophic risk out there as it pertains to what the world will focus on over the next 10 years and where the money will be spent. So, I think that, Bitcoin is the shiniest object in the room for what it does best. And what it does best is to hedge against inflation. And what it does best is to outperform systematically every other commodity on the face of the earth, and have done so for 15 years. Mathematics is driven into Bitcoin, and people have started to trust that math, and so it lends itself to it becoming an economy at scale. But even like to Andrew's point, to think that we're Bitcoin centric people, I think it's the sterling spoon in the drawer for sure. But if I look at a company like Disney, what is Disney? Well, it's a theme park. It's a management company. It's a logistics company, and it's an intellectual property company. And if they were able to put all that intellectual value on a private blockchain, control the blockchain, and make money through smart contracts on people renting their videos, buying emojis that are customized to there's an infinite economy there that Bitcoin wasn't built to do, guys. That's not what Bitcoin's best at. And so to think that Disney's not going to adapt to a much more efficient model because they're going to be Bitcoin maxis is insane to me. So it's like, go back to the blockchain has caused disruption. That's A1. Well, what did it first cause disruption in? Store of value, Bitcoin, A1B, you know what I mean? But there's going to be a litany, a glossary of impact that both blockchain and AI produce, where everyone can make a fortune if they're on the front edge of just that wave. So it's just like, don't get too caught up in, I missed the big Bitcoin wave. This is a whole economy of waves that are going to be pushing out. And if you can catch one at the beginning, you're going to be very, very, very happy you did, exceptionally happy. And let's go to a point I like to drive home, because everybody's talking about XRP right now. And I say this a lot, but I don't think it hits people when I say there's one thing that makes Bitcoin stand out against every other cryptocurrency that exists on the earth. And that thing is a fair and equitable distribution curve. It doesn't exist in any other coin. If you want one filter at the top of the web page that puts one crypto on the list and it's Bitcoin only, it's that it was fairly and equitably distributed. You can talk about consensus algorithms, you can talk about all the fancy stuff, but anyone who owns a Bitcoin got it one of three ways. They bought it, they mined it, or they stole it. Those are the only three ways you get Bitcoin. And you can't say that about any other currency. And so for people to sit there and think that the world's governments and that the world's banking elite system is going to take on XRP as their base denominated currency, I would just warn you to think about it like this. Ripple owns 50% of XRP tokens. Are they going to hand the power of the world to Ripple's executives? I personally don't think that's in the cards, but I do think Ripple and I do think XRP has incredibly good technology, settles very quickly, cheap, all that stuff. Tested it, I know it backwards and forwards. So I see that company being, very valuable to a Disney. Embed that in Disney, and you're really now onto something. But to stand there and to think that the global elite that use much more than cryptocurrency to keep their power, they're not going to give up all the other levers and just relinquish power because, oh yeah, this Bitcoin craze is a good craze. I mean, it's just or the XRP craze, whatever it is. They're not. Power comes through might, and they can instantly decide who has the might. Is the point?
Well, listen, Ripple applied for and got approval for a Ripple-focused stable coin just a couple of weeks ago. In my mind, that's why you should be a seller of XRP short and long term. Great that it pumped, wonderful, happy for everybody that's owned some or ridden the really, really long ride of the canoe-like price action for XRP, but holding it much longer than this is probably a mistake, because why would Ripple as an organization, to Tillman's point, if Disney is going to use the technology, they're going to use the stablecoin technology associated with Ripple, not the XRP token that can be 5 cents or $2.05. That doesn't make any sense. So Ripple's being smart by creating a stablecoin that they think can use the same technology that is pretty good, and integrated in, across whatever platforms they want to integrate it across. But the XRP token in and of itself is you're probably well served to take profits.
I think they learned what I've been saying literally for 5 years to people who tell me that it's going to be the next global reserve currency, which is, well, what keeps the global reserve folks that have all this power from just taking the technology and distributing all of the XRP 2.0 to themselves and not dealing with all the retail people schlub that's got it, and the fact that a corporation owns 50% of the minted coins. The technology is fantastic, but to think that it's the structure that they've created and the history that they've created inside of not only the community but also publicly, I just like Andrew said, I have a hard time believing that the hype is real.
Yeah, and I mean, really, again, as I mentioned earlier, as we all know, stable coins are the big thing. If there's anything big besides Bitcoin, I think it really is stable coins.
Right.
And so, to that extent, XRP, creating its system, I mean, it makes sense, right? They're in here to make money, and we've seen what stable coins do. And so,
who knows what they're going to do with a Ripple stable coin, because they're so behind the curve versus Tether and USDC, who just completely dominate that space. Like, who are you going to convince to use a Ripple stablecoin? I have no idea.
Or what are you going to back it with, right? Are they going to back it with XRP? Because that seems like a house of cards failure. We've seen that before, right? It doesn't work.
Ergo, if you just follow the tea leaves, if you need to back a Ripple-based stable coin with actual dollars, how are you going to raise those dollars? Wink, wink.
Without selling XRP.
You're going to sell your treasury XRP to raise those dollars to back the stable coin. So again, I don't know.
Listen, it's back to every single bull market we've ever. If you've ridden the XRP wave like I have, you've scratched your head every bull market going, who's selling into this massive bull? And you know what? Through the court filings, you can find out for yourself. It was strategic partners that had been given huge allowances of XRP for discounted prices with no lockup agreement.
Yeah.
So like you get what you ask for. Don't tell me that level of sophisticated company doesn't know that you're supposed to put people in lockup agreements to control the price fluctuations of a startup. That's why every IPO has lockup agreements that if you have a meaningful amount of shares and you're in an IPO, they tell you can't sell for a year, or you can't sell unless you sell at this scheduled rate. And here's what's crazy.
And that's what's crazy about it.
His Starlink failed.
For those that don't know, Tillman lives out in the middle of nowhere in the mountains in Colorado and uses Starlink, and that's why he has issues sometimes.
But no big deal. So pulling it back to Bitcoin, right? So we don't have these types of concerns and arguments associated with Bitcoin, which is why it's, absolutely the standard, wink, wink, associated with blockchain technology and crypto at large. And again, I'll come back to the truth and reality is that, a guy like Larry Fink, he just doesn't lose. And, when you get to the level of the game that he's playing, it's very, 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 very difficult to lose, because you're effectively creating your own manifest destiny. When you say something and you control all the levers that he does, you're creating it out of thin air, and it's nearly a guarantee, right? So, he probably expects, if they're at 11.5 trillion in total assets at this point, you can imagine that he doesn't want to stop there. He wants to get to 20. And the bet that he's making on Bitcoin and the growth of crypto overall is probably the way that he thinks that happens. So, I've said it so many times on Twitter and here, don't fade the Fink. Bad idea. Really bad idea.
And we're kind of knocking on XRP a bit here, guys. It is what it is. But, I think we have to take a moment and also say, thank God for those guys as well, because they've been in that protracted legal battle with the SEC for years, which has cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And any good that comes out of that is directly, it directly benefits the rest of us in crypto. And so,
listen, David Schwartz, David Schwartz, the CTO over there, is one of the smartest guys in crypto by far. And the technology I have hell of a respect for. It's an incredible technology, and it will be used. And, so a grain of wheat fall to the ground, it will bear fruit. And so even if Ripple or XRP isn't the one, if you're paving a way in this industry, you're not going to have a perfect road, and you're not going to do it all right. And they haven't. But they also have added extraordinary value. So I'm not here to bash XRP. I've been a fan of XRP for a long time. I just think when the pumps happened, there's been an extraordinary amount of I don't know what to call it, but just
call it
fake news. I don't know, just like absolute crazy, people saying what these prices are going to be. And I warn against that, is all I would point out, is that we've been on this roller coaster before, and he climbed to the sky. What was the Icarus? He flew too close to the sun and burned off his wing.
Yeah. And I mean, in this case in particular, at least technical analysis wise, the rally here appears to be a thrust out of a multi-year triangle on that. So, I mean, at least there's that on there as well. I think XRP is going to hit new all-time highs. Wouldn't be surprised to see it over $4. But again, I think the biggest, I look back at this whole thing here, and whether you like XRP or not, or you want to dog on them or not, or whatever you want to do, that's fine. But I think it's important that we do recognize that they have stepped up. They could have just bowed down to the SEC and said, yeah, yes, massa, and just done whatever they said. But instead, they've gone out there, and spent hundreds of millions of dollars and fought for things, which I think we'll look back in 10 years, we'll look back in 20 years and go, this was one of the great fights that really kind of helped crypto in the long run.
Well, I would just add a little cayenne pepper to that dish and say that I think that if you were a supporter of the XRP token early on, you fought a lot of those legal battles with your money, is my point. So, kudos to anybody that's been in the ecosystem, because the ecosystem will provide value to the greater ecosystem.
But long live Bitcoin. That's what it's all about right there. This is not beards and XRP. This is beards and Bitcoin, right? So listen, guys, we're coming up on the end of the year here.
XRP, can I just say for the record, is absolute garbage. Okay, it's garbage. It's terrible. It's always been terrible. Anytime there's a headline, I usually post a GIF of Will Ferrell in Talladega Nights saying, "That's dumb. That's just dumb." And it is. It's been pretty apparent what that organization has been over time, and good for them. They had a bunch of money to fight the lawsuits associated with the SEC. But that's all over now. You just had Paul Atkins accept the nomination for the SEC that just got announced with President Trump. So you now have a regulatory environment that's welcoming as opposed to anti-crypto. So you're not going to need to have to sort of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. You don't have to do that anymore. It's going to be a little more pure in the process. And so, I think Ripple over time is, going to kind of fade from the headlines, as they say.
Or they reinvent themselves like they're trying to do with the stablecoin. I think that's kind of what this is about.
Yeah, again, they're way, way, way behind the leaders. So I don't know how you grab market share from Tether.
Well, you do from your loyal XRP followers that have a bunch of newfound money.
Yeah, sure. But they've got to have exchanges that list Ripple coin dollar whatever we're talking about here. I mean,
they have them. Trust me. I'll send you the links after the show.
I know.
So coming up the end of the year here, guys, we got a few weeks for the end of the year. Any big predictions from you guys about Bitcoin? Things that may be happening, things that we might see prior to the end of the year or right into the beginning of the year?
I want to repeat a prediction I saw on the news, which I've just found to be, I think that the level of conviction inside of some of the TradFi people is so strong now. I even look at Michael Saylor and I wondered to myself, how long has he been in Bitcoin? And he hadn't been in Bitcoin that long, but these guys have been bit by the bug. And there was a guy, I can't remember his name, but he's very well respected. He was on one of the major news networks. And they said, what's your prediction for Bitcoin by the end of the year? And he said 125,000. And it blew my mind because the host said, you do know that's like 20 days away. And he didn't bat an eye. And he was like, I do know that's 20 days away. And I'm just floored with the balls and the conviction of some of these guys and how it's almost like I remember when I first fell in love with Bitcoin and how I just thought it was the greatest. And it's like you're getting to see all these TradFi people find that out for the first time on TV. And I like it.
Yeah. And to be clear, Tillman's seen a lot of balls, so he knows what he's talking about. Okay. So, the fact of the matter is he's really got it figured out.
He's talking about football, guys. He's talking about football.
I couldn't pass that one off. I really couldn't.
How do you know when you've got a real good friend like this, something like that here, in front of everybody else live?
I couldn't pass it up. I couldn't. No, my prediction for 80K Bitcoin is come and gone by the end of the year. And it was passed about a month ago, and it was passed quick and then moved on to 90, and it stayed there. It is uniquely, it's something to watch on the weekends that Bitcoin doesn't do anything but just, flatline. And then come, 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. on Mondays. All right, here we go. It's time to.
TradFi's in the office.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's going to get above 100 at some point, and then it's going to, push through to 125 plus. Where it goes from there, I don't know. There's, so many indications. Here's the thing: is that Michael Saylor's, debt associated with buying Bitcoin. He was the only guy doing it about 18 months ago. Now there's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 corporations doing it. So the traditional financial guardrails of issuing debt to go do that are getting more and more and more and more comfortable, right? More comfortable. That's a really hilarious comment. The below average college punter.
I refuse. I was a left guard because I refused to be the center. It just was too much for me.
So I think that process is only going to accelerate, because you've got to think about it. As they see the success of Saylor, and again the success of the buying up of that debt, and how fast that happens. Other companies are going to do it, and then there are going to be other banks and other issuers that are going to want to get in on that action. Right now, what's the end result of that action in 18? I don't know. Generally speaking, bubbles burst, but until then, it's going to accelerate, and with that, we'll probably see the acceleration of price with Bitcoin.
Well, the volatility index is getting smaller. I mean, look at this last pullback from the all-time high of 99,000. What did we go to? 91,
93.
and then
93,
and then bounce back.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys! Like they're when I say price controls, people start going, "Oh God, he's talking about." No, the price controls are good if everybody can agree on which direction. And I think the government, and I think all the corporations, all the big players are all going, we need this to be a base asset. What does that price look like? Everybody probably has their own number in their head. To me, it's like 375. If you had to put a gun to my head and said, what do you think this cycle we're going to get to? I think we won't crack 500, but I think we'll get real close. And, I may be totally wrong. We may get,
that's
see
a bigger one than I thought you were looking at, man. From all the discussions previously, I thought you were looking a lot lower.
Well, I was looking a lot lower, but like Andrew said, you have to adjust your parameters based upon information.
Yeah.
And all the information is faster than you could ever hope for.
Yeah.
And you're not just seeing the information as a confirmation just for Bitcoin. You're seeing it for innovation of technology. You're seeing it that people are not afraid to make bets on business. That's a, like you said, an uncontrollable force, especially when it's above a price that it's ever been. And when you're in price discovery mode and you have a lot of people coming into the boat, you really can't control where the price goes. And blow off tops are a real thing, and you should be looking for it. But I don't think I think when you look at a leg, this looks like a bull leg to me. 99, come back down a little bit, 93, trend sideways until it builds enough of a base to make its next level up. And I may be wrong, but one thing you posted earlier that I caught my attention that I found interesting was the Bitcoin dominance chart. And there's some key levels that if Bitcoin doesn't respond, that you're going to see an altcoin message, alt season message come out of here pretty strong and heavy. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I'm just really proud of that joke that I told. I'm just gonna, like George Costanza, I'm just gonna walk off. I'm just gonna walk off.
I'm glad. What episode is this? Like 532? You finally made a good one. We need the frequency to pick up, buddy. We need the frequency.
You're slacking, man. You're slacking. You got to make this more often. That's what it is, right? All right. Well, hey, listen, guys, that does it. That's our time. As usual, going a little bit over, trying to give you a lot of information there. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. We got about 1,400 people live right now. So absolutely fantastic. We appreciate you guys checking in with us and listening to our thoughts and, listening to Andrew's humor. We'll do that. But seriously, it's always such a great time here. Enjoy, hanging out with the guys and kind of talking Bitcoin and finance and the different things going on. And hopefully y'all do as well. Don't forget to follow these two guys, AP_Abacus and Texas OL61. Yeah, who's got that now?
Nice.
Yeah, I got that.
Nice, man.
And you can follow their company at Try Arch Public. All that on there. You can follow me at TXWest Capital. All that on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. You can join us, as you've seen on the bottom of the screen there, guys. $97 a month. That's our all-access group coaching pass there. It gets you. We teach you how and why markets move the way they do, how to understand that. It's really a more holistic approach in actually understanding markets and how to trade them properly. Proper risk management. You get access to FiboSwanny's threshold theory. You've seen him chalking up a few times here in the comments. And of course, our TWC Traders Club, where you get links. You get our trades, mine, Fibos, Andrew, not this Andrew, different Andrew, and Vince, our head traders over there at the Trading Academy. And our analysis throughout the day. You get all that, $97 a month, guys. Absolutely incredible. Even just try it out for a month, you'll see it. But I'm going to tell you, if you're looking for a way to just buy Bitcoin consistently and without having to think about it, right, where it buys at more the right areas, instead of you going, man, I'm going to wait for a pullback here and hopefully I'll get it and I can get in. Check these guys out. Archpublic.com. They just released on my birthday. I felt so honored that they did that on my birthday. They waited for that November 18th. They launched their Bitcoin algo, and you can go over there to archpublic.com and check it out. And what that's going to do, it's not a selling algo. It is a buying algo, guys. And it helps you kind of just buy in to Bitcoin consistently at more intelligent areas as Bitcoin moves. So it's this idea that you're DCAing over time. And I'm telling you, as a trader, I'm a trader, guys, but you should always have a separate bag of Bitcoin that you never touch. I'm a firm believer in that. You just add to it often. And what they do over there with that is going to help you a lot in that. You don't have to figure out where to get in and all that. Set it up, let the algo do its business, and you can go on there, making more money to add more to it. So
yeah, it's a tool that makes it very easy to create a very complicated layered approach. And that's what all the big boys do. And so we're trying to bring automated tools that leverage that capability for retail people. And it's something that you won't find anywhere else. Its purpose is to reduce risk. Anytime you buy anything, you're picking a point to buy in at. There's risk attached to that point. It can fluctuate off of that point. It will fluctuate off of that point. You're hoping it does, right? So this is something that allows you to mitigate that risk and really spread your purchases out and not miss opportunities. I've been in Bitcoin for a long time, and I can't tell you how many times I've known something was going to happen, and I went to sleep and I woke up and it happened, and I didn't get to take advantage of it because I was asleep. And automation doesn't go to sleep; it just sits there and waits for the right opportunity. So it's a game changer, and that tool coupled with the knowledge that you'll get from Chris, you'll be a dangerous person in the markets.
One last piece of info associated with where we're headed with Bitcoin. Citadel CEO Ken Griffin said today that he regrets not buying crypto a few years ago.
Oh, I missed that.
So if you want to know where we're headed, because Citadel, BlackRock, and Goldman and a couple custodians of scale, I mean, they flat out, that's who controls the movements of money globally. A guy like that saying that he regrets missing out, he's not going to regret it for much more. They're going to accumulate. And to what degree are they going to accumulate? And what degree are they going to be involved in the process by which crypto and Bitcoin moves everywhere? no question, every big boy is here now. Yeah. And they're just, they're starting to scoop it up in spoonfuls. And at some point they're grabbing shovels, and at some point they're grabbing huge earth moving machines and moving it in their direction.
So what we're saying is, if you feel like you're late, you're not late.
Not late.
You're not yet in. The rest of the big boys are just now starting to get in. You just have to look at it differently, guys. Don't look to make, a billion times, a billion X over the next 3 months. But the other way to think about it real quick is that think of Bitcoin as your protection against losing the value of your fiat currency, guys. You don't have to look at Bitcoin as making money. You can also look at it as protecting your downside. And when you do that, I think if you're still not buying Bitcoin, you're just really missing the boat on it. You want to say something, Tillman, real quick before we go?
I just was going to say, like you said, it's about risk, getting risk. And diversification is the age-old way to get rid of risk. And if you have no exposure to Bitcoin and you are so opposed to having any exposure, then ask yourself, is that a philosophy that I'm buying into more than, intelligence? Because even if you hate, I hate XRP. But Chris made a call at 155 that was too good to pass up. So you have to separate your disdain for projects and really focus on removing the emotion and saying, can this thing make me money or can it not? And when you're talking about Bitcoin, it's not so much about making you money as it is saving you the money you already have. Yeah.
All right, so that sounds great. As always, guys, thank you so much for joining in. Hit the like, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, follow the three of us online, guys. You get a lot of information there. And we're always, willing to answer questions that you guys have and whatnot, whether it be on X or if you want to leave it under the video here on YouTube or something like that. But, if you're new, welcome. We'd love to have you come back. We do this every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern. And I usually put a link up there on X and across social media about an hour before. I had trouble with Instagram today. Couldn't get it to post the stupid thing. I was like, are you serious? So I don't know what the heck happened there. But anyway, it is what it is. You guys have an amazing week. Trade safe. I do a lot of this with Gary Cardone, and these guys do some stuff with Gary Cardone as well. And, as Gary says, get out there, make more money that you can put into Bitcoin. Focus on making money that you can put into Bitcoin. And if you can at least do that, I'm hard pressed to find a way for you to end up losing in the long game. So there it is. You guys take care, trade safe. Andrew Tillman, thank you so much as always for being a part of this. And we look forward to discussing again next week. Andrew, you've got 7 days to work on your jokes, buddy. So
thanks, Chris. You bet.
All right, we'll take care. And we'll see y'all next week. Goodbye, everybody.